We're back. Hour number 2 here, laying down the law. I am your host, Steve Foster. Riding along with me, the athletic attorney, Ryan Willett. Our man from U Sports World, the Lieutenant Governor of the South Texas District of the AAU, Rod Chico Tanner. And, of course, that's right, return of the Mac.
One and only.
G.I. Bro.
Isaac Hayes. Hey, and the hits keep on coming.
Right here. Our man, the co-host, former All-Pro NFL quarterback Jeff Blake on assignment. And we go quickly to our Longhorns Insider. Yes, he moves. He gets there and back quickly. We're talking about our man from the Adams Theory, our Longhorns Insider, Sean Adams. Sean, welcome back to Laying Down the Law.
Hey, I appreciate you guys for having me on. Obviously, it's a tough morning. Think about this. 10 years ago, 8 years ago, somewhere along in there, if you lost to Texas by 23, you would get a pat on the back from the AD and be like, all right, we were competitive. In 2014, you lose to Texas by 23, you get fired the next morning. You got to give Charlie Strong some time, but, yeah, obviously things are a little bit different in 2014 for this Texas program.
We're talking with Sean Adams, our Longhorns Insider. You can hear him weekly, 2 to 4 on AM 1300, The Zone in Austin, Texas. Sean, when's the last time, and I was asking Ryan this as he is a proud alum, when's the last time Texas shut anybody out?
Yeah, I know. It's been a real long time. And, look, we came into this game knowing that Cozart, the Kansas quarterback, wasn't very good. Four interceptions. We know one of them came on a Hail Mary at the end of the first half, but they weren't very good on offense, and that's what it's come down to in weird places. Probably one of the things that helped usher Charlie Weiss out the door. I mean, other than he's inept. But he's supposed to be an offensive savant. He's supposed to be the guy who got Tom Brady where he is, and his career has actually declined from the New England Patriots to the OC at Florida, to the head coach, to the head coach at Notre Dame, to the OC at Florida, to the head coach at Kansas, and now out of work. So they weren't very good on offense. And Texas, if they can bank on anything right now, is that front seven, and they gave him fits.
Absolutely. Well, I don't think Kansas has really truly been good since Todd Reesing from Lake Travis back in the early 2000s.
Yeah, the other thing, you think about this, the coach on that team was Mark Mangino. He got them to the top 5. Remember, they beat Virginia Tech in an Orange Bowl down in Miami, and then some course conversation. Some of it was true of what Mark Mangino was saying, but some of it was racially charged, and he had to move on. He's now the offensive coordinator at Iowa State, and Kansas has been, let's be honest, they've been horrible in their tenure, more than they've been good. But, yeah, they're on the bad side of advantage. They're where Baylor was, back in the 90s when Texas would go to Waco and beat them 62-0. So I think right now the Kansas folks are hoping, hey, where can we find our Art Briles?
No doubt, and I'm not sure if he's out there, but I would believe he's somewhere, maybe not yet developed for them. We were talking also, Sean Adams, next 2 games for the Texas Longhorns are real deal games against some serious top 5 to 10 opponents.
Yeah, I thought that, and look, I never encourage anybody to bet. Don't waste your hard-earned money on 19-year-old kids that might do something stupid on Friday night and lose out to the core values. But I like to look at the lines as public sentiment of what people think about the team. And I thought that 12-point line yesterday was a joke. I said on my show last week, dude, if I was a betting man, I'd bet Grandma's Ranch on that thing. There's no way they're not going to beat Kansas by less than 12. But the problem is, I also said, if they can't manhandle Kansas, and why I mean manhandle, win by 25, 30, 35, I'm scared about Baylor coming to town next weekend and then OU and Dallas the next weekend.
Yeah. And again, I don't think many people would give them opportunity, except the fact that, someone's got to win and someone's got to lose, so that puts you at 50%. Like you said, this is a Longhorn team, which I think, though, Sean, is coming around towards the attitude of the coach. Less is becoming more. You have to get rid of things that aren't going to propel you forward, and that's the attitude of, well, I'm wearing burnt orange, so I just have to show up and I can do whatever I want off the field. That's not acceptable anymore.
Okay, here's a place where you're right. When you look at what they have next week and what they have going forward, I think those are tough games. But nobody went into Dallas last year thinking that Texas could beat OU. And Case McCoy tore him up. So do you go into this game thinking, would you take Case McCoy right now or would you take Tyrone Swoops right now? And that answer would be pretty close. So I think that gives you a shot at the game. Here's the other issue. Back when I was running track and I was just good enough to get you beat, I was just good enough to get second place. I was able to get into the big invitational meets like the Penn Relays and the Effect, but I wasn't ever good enough to beat the Carl Lewises and the Michael Johnsons. And you know what everybody would say? Dude, you got to man up. You got to have an attitude when you step on that field. Here's the issue with that, and I always take exception to that because you know what? There was no amount of man up that was going to help me beat Carl Lewis on that day. The bottom line is I wasn't talented enough. There was nothing that was going to help me beat Michael Johnson on that day. The bottom line is I wasn't talented enough. So the hard part for me is I'm looking at this offense now and seeing that they put up 23 points against Kansas, and one of them was with 3 minutes left in the game, which some people would consider as a garbage touchdown. And I start to think, where the heck do all the points come from? If your defense has to be good enough to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers when they had Warren Sapp and Derek Brooks and John Lynch, and they were going to hold you to 2 touchdowns and a field goal, and you win the game. This defense in this conference is not good enough to do that. So they've got to figure out how to score points, and I just don't know right now where they come from.
Yeah.
Now, Sean, I will say this. I was impressed that they opened up the offense a little bit more yesterday. They gave Swoops the opportunity to throw it downfield, which hopefully gets those safeties away from the line of scrimmage a little bit and open up our running game some. It looks like they're getting a little more comfortable with Swoops in that respect.
Yeah, I think so, too. Here's the deal. There's a growth curve in that, too. So you have to get comfortable with him. And then there's a growth curve in how he's successful with that. Because you saw him throw the ball deep yesterday, and he actually throws a really deep ball, but there's not a lot of touch on it. And there's not a lot of touch on it, and there's a lot of struggle with being accurate on it. So he's got to connect on some of those deep balls before it truly pulls the safety out for more than a play or two. A guy's got to get yelled at by a coach for giving up a big play before he really truly commits to not just getting up there and stopping the run. So I think this is a long, graduated curve. I don't know that Tyrone I think Tyrone Swoops came in. Let me say this the right way. I think Chris Sims came into college with a ton more talent than Tyrone Swoops. But I think they both came in with the same issue. Tyrone Swoops came in having not played a big brand of football, having played two-way football in the state of Texas. And if you heard Sean Watson last week, he talked about the fact that he had to teach Tyrone Swoops how to look off a safety. All right, what the hell was he learning the whole last year? So he came in that way. And then, Chris Sims came in playing New Jersey rich boy football. So they came in behind where other Texas quarterbacks usually are when they come in. So I just think there's a big learning curve for Tyrone Swoops, and people are going to have to be patient with him.
Sean, Spencer Conley here. My thing is this. When they've been trying to turn Swoops into a receiver for I don't know how long. So when you go through the spring, their hopes was, hey, we got Swoops in the spring, so this is what we're going to go with. But they were casting a lot on David Ash. And I don't think it's so much that they're opening up their offense. Is do we lay here and die, or do we have to try? Because it's obvious. The better part of your offense is the running game. So you have to make an attempt to throw the ball and hope that you have receivers that'll fight for it when it's in the air. Because if not, the running game will go in. It won't go nowhere. They have to make an attempt to do something. I think that this is just a young Texas team right in the middle of a transition that has to be allowed to make a transition despite what people want and what they expect out of Texas. Every program goes through this at some point or another. And when you're talking about playing games on 35, when you're talking about playing games on I-35, when you're talking about going to Waco and then going all the way up to Norman on 35, you can't bet on those games all the way back to the Southwest Conference. You know, all those kids know each other. I think they're going to fight a lot harder in the game. I don't think Baylor's going to run away with it. If they beat them, I don't think OU is going to run away with it. If they beat them, I think that they do have fight. It's tough when you have a culture change. It's just like you have a kid who's being raised by a single mom for years, and all of a sudden, his stepdad shows up. You know, now, the dynamics on how that house is ran and functioned is completely different. There's a learning curve, and that has to be available, and people need the opportunity to allow that to happen.
No, you know what? I absolutely agree with you. Here's the part for me, and I believe in fight, and everybody's got to have some fight. Here's the part for me. Against the Kansas team that was not good. They had Ben Heaney, the linebacker, and I don't think a lot of other great players. They were down morale-wise. I think they knew that their coach was on the out. Charlie Weiss, in his pregame yesterday, said, and Texas can also give the ball to Bergeron. I don't even know if Charlie Weiss was actually paying attention to what was going on yesterday. So under that build, under that setup, under that characteristic, Tyrone Swoops was adequate. That scares me. I mean, and I struggle so hard because I like Tyrone Swoops so much as a kid. But I look at him yesterday against a Kansas team that was bad, and he was adequate. And you would expect to see a young guy, even when stuff breaks down, if he's a dynamic player, to make dynamic plays, to see a flash of it yesterday.
But I think you said it, Sean. I think you said it. When him coming from 2A ball, and sometimes, especially in high school football, the only thing that separates some teams is one guy. So if he, in high school, if he could out-athlete you, then that's what caused him to have success. His football IQ, clearly he's struggling there. But I just really want to know, what are people wanting out of this UT football team right now? Because they're not like a Dallas Cowboy, who is completely and had been completely loaded at several positions and cannot win. That's different. This isn't UT is not that. They're not stacked at every position and not winning. They're struggling on and off the field, and I think that's very difficult.
Here's the part for me. If you look at the offense, when Charlie Strong took the job, they had 11 slated starters. Right now, 5 of those guys aren't there. One of them is the starting quarterback. One of them was the starting center that had the most starts on the offense. And 2 of them are the offensive tackles. So when you look at everything else that's happened with suspensions and where they are and the team that's there, and that this is a totally different offense from what Sean Watson signed up for, and I get it. Everybody's got to coach them up. Football's a very complex game. Fields and coaches make it look easy. So the fans always look at it, well, you got to coach them up. I don't think they always understand what goes into coaching them up. So I look at this team, and I say if they qualify for a bowl game, because right now they beat Kansas, they're 2-2. I think they beat Tech because Tech is horrible. I think they beat Iowa State because they're not that great. That gets them 4 wins. What are they going to do against Iowa State? I mean, what are they going to do against the other people in the Big 12? What are they going to do against West Virginia? What are they going to do against Oklahoma State? And I think all those games are up in the air. I think they get better over the course of the year. But in my mind, if they get to 7-5, I think that would be a rock star year.
Oh, I agree.
I think this team is up against it. And if they ended up going 6-6 and going to the Pool and Weed Eater Independence Bowl in Shreveport, I think you got to look at that as a victory.
Yeah.
You pat your seniors on the back and say, I'm sorry we couldn't send you out a better day, and you tuck away and try to get ready for next year. This team is up against it. And anybody that thinks, well, if they win anything less than what Mac Brown won last year, then the team is worse off. And then I think those people they're idiots, and you just can't worry about them And because the people that know ball, and I talk to ex-players all the time, and I talk to scouts all the time, the people that know ball understand what Texas is up against.
Do you think would you be satisfied with just seeing Texas continue to get better and fighting, for 4 quarters of football, showing promise, for a better day and a positive future? Would that satisfy you right now, honestly, knowing where they are?
That would absolutely satisfy me. The only thing, look, and we love football for this very reason, that when you're up
would that be enough
fight,
to keep Charlie's job?
You don't. Yeah, Charlie's not.
Oh,
going
he's not going anywhere. Yeah.
Charlie's not going
His job
anywhere.
is safe.
Charlie Strong is going to be. I feel I'm the guy that probably thinks the athletic director might go before Charlie does, because he made the decision. He kind of made it in a vacuum because that's what he wanted to do, and I'm not even mad at him for that. But if things go south, they'll turn on the athletic director before they turn on the coach. And I think Charlie Strong will have his time. It's borderline journalistically irresponsible for ESPN to have Charlie Strong on the hot seat 3 games in next to Will Muschamp, who's had his years, has changed coordinators on both sides. I mean, it's ridiculous that they even have that. Charlie Strong's not going anywhere. He's got to finish this year, teach his kids to fight, and if they fight for 4 quarters, I felt better, to be honest with you, about the BYU game this year than I did last year. They're fighting. In a lot of cases, they just don't have the personnel. So, I mean, on some level, it's like I had a college coach tell me one time, if a coach asks a player ask him to do something that he's not capable of doing, the player's going to question the coach more than he's going to question himself. So people that expect this team to go out here with where they are, they got an offensive line that has 2 of the starters that were on the defensive line 4 weeks ago, and they're expecting them to go out and win 8 or 9 games. They're just not dosed in reality, and I don't have time to have those conversations.
Absolutely.
I hear that.
I'm talking about.
I hear that. Good
Absolutely.
job, Sean.
He is our Longhorns Insider, Sean Adams.
Yeah.
You can see him on the Longhorn Network. You hear him Monday through Friday on AM 1300 The Zone. The Adams Series, 2 to 4 p.m. each afternoon. Sean, thank you for the insight, man. It's always good to check in with you, and it's going to be a very interesting few weeks coming up, and I really want to see now because, we're going from low in the warm up to about 400, 450 degrees in the oven. So it's going to be very interesting. And this is only year 1, as you said. Just breathe. Sit down and breathe, put your seatbelt on, and let's see what happens with this program. And also, Sean, appreciate your time as always.
Fellas, y'all take it easy. Have a good afternoon.
All right. You can follow him, that Sean, on Twitter as well. We're going to take a sidebar and come back. We'll take your calls. Coach John Smith, don't go anywhere, son. And also at the bottom of the hour, we're going to have Jay Foreman, our Houston Texans insider, and the shout-outs right here on Laying Down the Law.